Hey, I'm Ray Hudson, and you are, I don't know who you are, but you're listening to Blaugrana Graham. Don't be like them kids in the Blair Witch Project and go away, right?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the Driven Shot Podcast. This is Season 3, Episode 2, with a special guest, a good friend of mine, Steve Duffis. How are you, Steve?
I'm doing well. I'm doing good, Omar. What's going on, man? I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you, man. We've been talking about this for a while. I've guested on your podcast, the Stat Man podcast,
Yes.
before. So I'd like you to just tell people what you do. Let's let people get to know you a bit.
Yeah, so basically, for those of you who don't know me, because I'm sure some of you have listened to my podcast before, because Omar was on there. It was a long time ago. I started my podcast, 3 years ago. Actually, last week, 3 years ago, I started my podcast. And thank you. So basically, what my podcast entails, I talk about basically all the sports, but not just in the regular confines of just talking and debating, but more so breaking down numbers, taking numbers and making them make sense for people. Because sometimes, you might watch a game, you wake up the next morning, you get a chance to look at the box score and you don't understand something. So my podcast, what it does is break down those numbers for you so you get a better understanding of what you looked at in the highlights, basically. So I enjoy doing it. So I'm glad to be here to do this, talking about Barcelona.
Yeah, man. Happy to have you. And again, I personally love your podcast. I've been on there a few times, and it's always been fun. And at the end of this show, we'll let people know where they can check you out. In the description below, of course, this is being streamed currently live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. But if you missed this episode, or if you just tuned in and you can't watch the entire episode, it will be on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Audible, wherever you listen to podcasts, it's on there. And all the links to all of our socials, including Steve's podcast, will be down there as well. So make sure to check that out. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you have any questions, feel free to send them in the chat. We'll, of course, deal with those as we go on. So, Joav, before we go on, how have you been? How are you doing? How's everything on your end?
Yeah, everything's good, man. Thanks for asking. I'm excited for today. First match of Barcelona in the Champions League post Messi. Interesting to see, exciting times. But yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. So, of course, for Barca, they put out the squad list today. Bayern have had theirs out. Really no surprises in Bayern's. Lewandowski is obviously going to be in there. Your Kimmich's, your Goretzkas, and all the other talents they have in their roster. But for Barcelona, really, are we surprised? Have you guys been surprised by any of the selections?
Well, I would say not necessarily, because due to injuries, obviously, we all know what's going on. Braithwaite's out for an extended period of time now. We found out he just had to have a knee surgery. And then, we know Ansu Fati still dealing with his recovery. And then Dembele, I feel like, he's been like a glass player, and, he's never really available. So I guess the lineup that we have going on right now, I'm not surprised, really not surprised at all.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, the only three surprises that there can be for any people would be Nico, Gavi, and Alejandro Balde, all in the list. But aside from that, as you both mentioned, really no surprises. Dest is back, which I guess that was one of the question marks, right? Is he's just been injured? Is he going to be back in time? Is he being rushed back, or is he actually ready? We'll find out. So in terms of the lineup that we'll see tonight, the game, of course, kicks off at 9 p.m. Barcelona time at the Camp Nou for the first time with fans in the Champions League since 2019. So that's also something that I think will definitely add to this game. But if we look at some of the newcomers, your Memphis, your Luke de Jong, Eric Garcia, Demir, Coutinho is back. Who do you think we'll see starting today out of those? Do you think we'll see all of them starting? Do you think Luke de Jong will start on the bench? What do you guys think? I want to hear your thoughts, and I want to hear the thoughts in the chat as well. So let us know down below who you think is who your preferred starting lineup. Who makes it, and we'll discuss that as we go on.
Go ahead. Oh, you want me? You go ahead. I don't know. I'll just say this. I was thinking about this before I came on, even yesterday. I was looking at the potential lineups, and what still flashes in the back of my mind is what happened last year. the 8-2, and there was really no, I don't know, it was no dynamism going forward, right? And I feel like this year with the young, we just picked them up, and I'm saying we a lot for those in the chat. I say we because I'm a Barcelona fan as well. So we picked up the young. We still have Memphis Depay, and I feel like going up against Bayern, particularly today's first game, I always feel like you have to send a statement. And I think Memphis being up forward with the young would give us the best option for dynamism because, as you guys know, you watch football and Bayern Munich, they attack. They don't take breaks. And we need to go forward. Barcelona needs to go forward, and they need to score goals. That's the only way you win. So I feel like having those two up front would be the best option for the moment. So I don't know what you guys think.
I want to hear Joav's opinion here.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, Bayern never rest. They score 8 goals per match, basically in the Bundesliga, so they know that they don't have basically a break pedal. But yeah, I mean, right now I think Memphis has to be like your reference in attack. I mean, he's a player that's been doing stuff different for Barcelona. He attacks, he scores goal, which is the more important thing right now for Barcelona. And I do think adding Luke de Jong, he might just be, I think this is like his second week at Barcelona. But I do think he is something different to what other players at Barcelona really can offer right now for the striking option. Now, in the defense, I think Eddie Garcia really played a really good game the first 2 matches in La Liga. He, of course, got the red card in the second one. But nevertheless, I think he has played really well. I don't know if Piqué will be on there because, as we also know, Bayern have crazy amount of speed on their attack. So right now, I think it's a headache for Koeman to actually really know, beginning from the formation, will we go back to the 4-3-3, 3-5-2? So I think it's really an interesting time for Barcelona to really have an open mind and make this change really go well in their favor.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as Luke de Jong, and I said this yesterday on FC Barcelona stream on Twitch as well. Luke de Jong offers something that, as you said, Joao, we haven't seen for a while. And I think as much as some people are against the signing because they don't think he's at that level yet, I think the X factor that he brings in his height and the fact that he is a good header of the ball, he's a good aerial threat. Add to that the fact that he is one of those players that, I mean, he worked in Lopetegui's system for a while before Enesiri came in from Leganés, and obviously within this series they're in form. De Jong is not going to get a proper outing, but he played under Lopetegui, who is a heavily possession-based manager, so he's used to a system that's similar to Barcelona's. And he's one of those threats that Barca will have going forward, considering that Alba and Dest so far, and even Roberto, when Barca had Emerson Royal and Firpo, they were never really crossing it. They were always doing the cutbacks or a low-driven cross. And if the team you're playing against knows that that's what you're going to do, it's going to be way easier to read it every single time. And you're going to have to try something else. But now with Luke de Jong, Barca can actually make those crosses from corners or free kicks. Barca will have bigger threats to actually play with. And I think Luke de Jong actually might turn out to be a surprise for people. I think if he does start tonight, which I could see happening, also because of his relationship with Koeman, the fact that he already knows Memphis from back when they used to play for PSV, the fact that he knows Frankie as well, from the national team, I could definitely see Luke de Jong starting. But the question I want you guys to also help me answer is, do you think we'll see a 3-5-2 or a 4-3-3 or the 4-2-3-1 that Koeman likes? Because obviously it's never just going to be the one formation. Barca will start with one formation, shift off to the second, maybe even a third. But which one do you think Barca will start with? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Joab, do you want to go first?
Or Steve? Yeah, go ahead.
Either of you.
Okay, I'd just like to say I think they'll go back to the 3-5-2 because actually last season we saw the best performance under Koeman with that formation specifically. Also knowing that for these kind of matches that sometimes you actually have to outscore the rival, not really defend that well, but actually outscore. And I think that formation actually gives the opportunity to Jordi Alba to do something of that nature because, as we know, he defends well, but I think he's actually a better attacker. Same goes for Dest. Dest is actually a good defender, but he's also extremely difficult to contain when he's going up into the attack. So I think this formation actually allows him to do this, and it also allows Busquets to play in his better form because we all know he doesn't have the speed he used to have, and he's much more confident when he's actually surrounded by those kind of players like Frenkie and Pedri, and also that he knows that he has specifically 3 center backs at his back to cover his areas as well. So I would expect them to go back to that, especially as we were saying, Luke de Jong actually does a lot of heading. So with that formation, actually, the fullbacks can go into position and send him a lot of crosses, and also allow Memphis to actually play behind him and just feed him balls. So I would expect it to go that way. If they go back to the 4-3-3, it'll also be like a safe move by Coman, because a lot of the players actually have been playing a lot of their lives under that formation. But I would expect them to go back to 3-5-2.
That's a good point, Steve.
Yeah, I was thinking. Again, I was thinking about this earlier today as well. That's how my brain really works. I think about a lot of scenarios, and I honestly believe that. I agree with Joab. The best formation would be the 3-5-2. Why? Because for a lot of you who are watching this right now, you don't understand that formation too well. It gives you a lot of options on the wing, but also allows you to control the midfield. And in football, if you play basic football, you control a game. And if you've watched Barcelona since, I've watched Barcelona basically all my life. The best teams they had is when they had control of midfield. And any team that has been great has control of the midfield. And that's what Barcelona needs to do against Bayern, because when they bring that pressure, you should be able to have outlets, right? And those outlets are coming from the midfield. But I honestly think, though, he probably will start with a 4-3-3, because as Joe have said, most of these guys are comfortable playing that 4-3-3. But I think within the first 15 minutes, he's going to change that up, because the way Bayern Munich has been playing, you can't give them too many chances and space, and especially with not arguably, he is the best striker in the world with Lewandowski. And, you give that guy space, it's over, Yeah. So I think allowing them to control the midfield and also allowing them to defend would also be the best thing. And plus, like I said earlier as well, having Memphis Depay up front would allow him also on the wing to create more. Because now that you have De Jong who can head the ball in, is an interesting stat that I found as well. Do you guys know in the last 7 years on crosses, Barcelona has only scored 3% of the time? Literal crosses from the wing.
Not surprising.
That is no, but that's also a really low number.
Yep.
Exactly. So that lets you know, like you were saying, Omar, like they will cross the ball lane, but it's not a real cross. They'll cross the lane, just tap it back out for somebody to get a shot outside the box. A real cross, you want to get into the box because you want to put pressure on the defense. You have to defend, So I think it's going to be interesting with the formation. But I think 4-3-3 and then 3-5-2.
Okay, so I guess we're all sort of settled on the 4-3-3. So then the next question is, who starts in that 4-3-3?
I think Memphis is probably going to start out on the wing, on the left wing. And then, De Jong at the striker. And then the midfield, I don't know. Maybe if... It all depends what they're really trying to accomplish. If they want to defend, then you really have to have Busquets in there, and then somebody to attack, you throw Coutinho in there. But again, with all the injuries going on, you don't really know what's going on. And then you have Frenkie too. You have to have control of the midfield somehow. And Busquets can't do all the work by himself, and especially against Bayern Munich. So they have to decide, okay, do we want to score or do we really want to defend and then go on a counterattack? So if this was any other team, I wouldn't think so much about it. But because it's Bayern, there's a lot of things you have to think about.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so let's try this then. In keeper, Ter Stegen, between the sticks, right? No doubt about that.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so left back, Alba. Who's the right back then? Dest or Sergi or Mingueza? Considering Dest just returned from injury. Otherwise, for me, Dest would be the clear favorite, but he's just coming back from an injury. And Mingueza is sort of also just returning from an injury. But who do you think starts at right back tonight?
Go ahead, Steve.
I think Roberto should start, just for precautions. Okay, he's healthy, and he's been in that role a while now at Barcelona, so I think he knows what he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair suggestion, and I could see that happening because I mean, of course, Barca want to win this first game. It's the Champions League opener and all that. But also, you don't want to risk Dest getting injured just as he's returning. And as far as Mingueza, he's also returning from an injury. And that's also a question. If you're playing a 4-3-3, I don't think Koeman would want to put Mingueza out there as the right back.
No.
At least not from the get-go. So, left back Alba, right back Roberto, center back pairing. I think we'll see a PK Araujo. But I want to know what you guys think.
I don't know, Joab. What do you think?
Personally, I think Eddie Garcia is going to start because he played really well, as I said in the first two matches. But I don't know. I mean, I really like Araujo. I think he's really a different defender because he's tall, he's strong, he's pacey. And I don't know if, I mean, Piqué is a really good defender, but I don't know if he's really up to this task anymore. Because, I mean, as Steve said, you have Lewandowski, who's a monster in front of goal, and he can outpace Piqué, I think, really easily.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's not going to be like that, but I would like to see Araujo, Eddie Garcia to actually see how they pair up. But again, you haven't really
I would
played
like
them together.
that as well.
But you haven't really paired them up in an official match. So I think Ronald Koeman won't do that. I think it will be Piqué, Eddie Garcia. So I think he will be going back to what we've been seeing in the first few matches of La Liga.
Yeah. The reason I thought Piqué Araujo, before you continue, Steve, the reason I thought Piqué Araujo is because I think their styles are that different to the point where they complement each other very well and make up for the things the other player lacks. Whereas with Garcia, I feel like, and I really do like Eddie Garcia, and I think he definitely is worthy of starting today. But given how Ronald Koeman has had his lineups recently, I don't see Garcia and Araujo starting together against Bayern tonight. I feel like that might be a big of a risk for him to take. I would like to see it happen, but realistically, I think it's going to be something like Piqué Araujo or Piqué Garcia. But Araujo definitely deserves a start at this point, in my eyes.
Right.
He's been brilliant.
Yeah, I was thinking this way. I was thinking at two levels, right? Because, if you go back to the 3-5-2, right, and you have control of the midfield, your midfielders have to also do a little work in terms of helping back in defending, right? And as Joab just mentioned, Lewandowski can destroy any back line. But it's quite funny because he's really not that fast in comparison to other strikers, but he knows how to position himself really well. And PK having the pace that he does have, which is really slow at the moment at this age, you have to make a decision. Like, you really have to decide now. And that can really break this game open or win it for Barcelona as well. Because depending on your pairing and who you place in the midfield, that is going to allow you now to have control in the back end and also control the pace in the midfield. And that neutralizes any striker, regardless if it's Lewandowski, Ronaldo, whoever you have at the 9. You can really control that, because then that back pairing, that center back pairing, can have more leeway to make certain mistakes because your midfield is coming down to allow them to, be able to defend well. And I think having PK back there, because you guys don't know, but if you follow my Twitter, people know I've been for years saying that PK needs to go, and solely because of his pace. Because we play football now with pace, and as much as he's been the veteran for the team, I don't think he's as effective as he used to be, right? But for today, if we're just talking about today, I think he probably will start, right? But it's going to be with caution, I'd say.
Yeah, I see your point. So, just to be clear, you're thinking PK will start. Who do you think will join him if we're trying to make what we think is our starting 11? Who do you think would join PK at center back in the 4-3-3?
I think you guys didn't mention Langley at all.
That's
Don't you guys
true.
think he will be able? And I honestly thought he should be playing in place of PK with whoever else you want to put that.
That could be interesting, actually. Yeah. Because I think Langley has found form again. He's starting to find his form again.
Yeah. Yeah, and the last couple games he's played in, he's defended really well. Obviously, everyone made mistakes at that position, but I think he's been more consistent than PK has been. right? Because he's not making the silly mistakes that I've seen PK make in the past. Like the last couple games, I'm seeing him basic football again. You use the baseline as another defender, and a lot of times PK doesn't use the baseline to help him defend, right? And that can cause you a lot of trouble. And I think those mistakes, again, you can't make them against Bayern Munich.
Right, right.
So that's really going to matter. So I believe Langley needs to start. I think he probably will start, but I'm not sure who they're going to pair him with because, again, it's kind of tricky back there.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a very good point. So let's see. All right, so we have the defense pretty much more or less. It's going to be something like Langley PK or PK Araujo or Langley Araujo. It's going to be one of those probably, or Eric Garcia. Throw him in the mix as well.
And Titi.
I don't know.
I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
That's why I laughed.
The thing is, I don't think he should start, but I think he's been. I mean, I don't think he's been as bad as people make him out to be this season. I think he's been okay. He's not the guy I would trust in a two center back pairing against Bayern, but for for the games against less prominent sides in the league, I could see him starting or getting a good run because yes, he's been injured, but he's still, like the ball knowledge that you have doesn't just disappear. You know what I mean? Like when we saw him a couple of seasons back getting shouts for the best defender in the world, he knows what he's supposed to do. But just also partly because of his injuries, I imagine, he's just not able to do those things anymore. Maybe he'll regain his form, but I feel like that sort of intelligence on a football level doesn't just disappear overnight. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him at some point tonight, but I don't think he'll be starting at all.
No.
Especially with Araujo and Garcia in playing as well as they have been. All right, so that's the four line. We have the three midfield pairing. Busquets for me, it's going to be Busquets, De Jong, Pedri, and then Coutinho on the wing, with Memphis slotting over to the right because he's going to free roam anyway, and then Luke up front. But I want to hear what you guys think because I feel like the midfield three who makes it there depends on who makes it up front, and I don't see anyone getting in the starting lineup ahead of Coutinho, given the squad list that we see today, unless Dest plays as a winger, which I don't see that happening from the get-go. But yeah, what do you guys think? I want to hear your thoughts. I don't see Demir starting today. Is essentially what I'm trying to say.
I think it's probably going to be Busquets, De Jong, and Coutinho, right? But then again, it might be completely wrong as well. But it also depends how they start the game as well. Is it going to start 3-5-2? Is it going to start 4-3-3? It all depends as well. And depending on that, on whichever formation you pick, the guys might alternate in the midfield. But typically, midfielders in Barcelona have free reign to move wherever they want as long as they control the midfield. So I think having those three guys would allow Barcelona to have some control, but then again, it has to be with caution, depending on what formation you start with. So for those again who are watching, if you start with a 3-5-2, the wingers, the center backs, the wingers rather, they will come up from the back, allowing the midfielders to have more control of the midfield and also help them defend. But if you start with a 4-3-3, the three guys in the midfield, they really have to, control it by themselves. Because if you leave any gaps, it's going to be problems against Bayern Munich, for sure. So I think those three guys will give them a good chance of controlling it, but they have to be very aware of, who Bayern has as well in the midfield and what they have going on. So I think that's going to be the three, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Joav?
I was just thinking as Steve was talking, just like a weird experiment at some point of the season, I would actually love to see. Well, obviously, I really like Pedri. I love how he plays. I love his intensity, especially since he's so young and he plays like he's a veteran. But let's imagine a 3-5-2 in which you take out Pedri and actually play Coutinho as a number 10 behind Memphis Depay and Luke De Jong.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really like Coutinho, and I think his best position at Barcelona is the number 10. Obviously, before you had Messi, so you actually couldn't play him as a number 10. But right now, I think it would be an interesting thing to see him playing behind Memphis and Luke De Jong. But for this specific match, I don't see him playing as a starter, especially since he hasn't really played this season. So I think Koeman will actually go back to the basics as well and go back just Pedri, Busquets, and Frenkie De Jong.
Interesting. All right. So that's the midfield three. Now to the attacking three. So for me, realistically, I'm thinking Coutinho, Memphis, and Luke De Jong. Thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the way
Coutinho,
to
Memphis. Yeah, basically.
go. Unless you go with
notice
Demir.
initially. Right. Exactly. And you see, like initially when I only mentioned methodically Memphis Depay and De Jong because I wasn't sure who the other person was going to be.
And
the reason why I say
where?
that, right, and the reason why I really mention that again, because I like to explain things in detail so the listeners and the viewers understand. Like when you change formations, it really does matter who you have up front. Because if you play 4-3-3, you have two wingers and a striker, basically, right? But if you play 3-5-2, you basically just have two strikers, right? And the guys that we really have, they're not really true strikers in Depay, right? And Coutinho, they're not real strikers. So that only leaves De Jong there. So again, when you're playing Bayern Munich, you have to decide what you want to do, right? Do you want to score goals? Do you want to control the midfield? Or do you want to let them have the possession and then go on counterattack? And I believe, as we saw last year, that didn't work out too well for Barcelona. When they decided to play the 4-3-3, Bayern Munich carved them up. Like it was obviously by the score, right? So today, I think they need to focus on, just really putting guys in the positions where the best at. And right now, the way Memphis Depay is playing, he's playing like top 10 player in the world. So he needs to be put in a position where he can do some damage. So I think he needs to be in a wing where he can create the most damage. Don't let those Bayern defenders just sit back there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good point. And I could definitely see him being put out on the wing, especially now with Luke De Jong where he is. You kind of reach a point where it wouldn't make much sense to have Memphis be the attacker. And now that Memphis actually has an attacker to feed off of, it makes it that much easier for him to be able to do his thing, So I definitely agree. I think Memphis on the wing would make the most sense. And then obviously you have Luke De Jong as the man up front. And then the last winger is the one that we'll obviously have to play around with for a while. But I still feel like the last winger definitely would be Coutinho because I just don't see Demir starting against Bayern. I would be very surprised.
Yep. I was actually looking at Bayern Munich, first fixture in the Bundesliga, and they actually draw it against Borussia Mönchengladbach. So I would hope that actually Ronald Koeman will be looking at that match in particular and see what Borussia Mönchengladbach did to actually I think the biggest accomplishment rather than the draw is gating the fact that Bayern Munich only scored one goal in that match. It was a 1-1 draw. So I think Ronald Koeman should be looking at that replay and see what the German side did to just completely nullify it. Because as we said, they don't only have Robert Lewandowski. They also have Leroy Sané. They have who else do they have in the attack?
I think they had Müller.
They have Müller.
Maybe they have Müller as well.
Yep. Yeah. I think Serge Gnabry actually is injured right now for this match.
Yeah, I think so too.
One less threat, but I mean the attack that they have is not only Robert Lewandowski, and you also have Leon Goretzka and Joshua Kimmich that can score goals like crazy from long range. So you really have to take into consideration that it's just not Lewandowski. You have like 5 other players that can actually score goals very easily for Bayern Munich.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they have a very, very dangerous team, and I think you do bring up a good point in seeing what Mönchengladbach did and seeing how that can be used to Barca's advantage. And I'm sure that's something that, the technical staff have taken a look at it, or at the very least noted behind their ear that actually did happen, and that they are not. And that's the thing too. They're not the same Bayern they were back when the 8-2 happened. They're not as strong, and Barca are not as well, chaotic, I guess is the word.
Out of form.
Yeah.
As things were out of form.
Discombobulated. Yeah.
As things were back then, because
Mhm.
Barca were really, really struggling at the time. So this game comes at a better time in the middle of a rebuild, and I mean, I don't think we'll see a blowout tonight at all. And that leads me to the next thing, which is how do you think this game is going to end?
Yeah, I honestly think that Bayern Munich is favored for a reason, and I think more so because of their name, more so than how they're really playing right now. Because Barcelona has been playing really well too, in comparison to what we've seen from last year, from the end of last year to now. And before I answer that though, I want to add this to my answer because I think it's really important. The psychological effect of the 8-2 is going to have some players on the team still thinking, because the team it was Barcelona's team from last year is not the same from this year, right? And there are obviously new guys on the team, so they don't really necessarily know, what really went on in the game in the locker room with all the messy drama that was going on during that game. So I think that's not really going to play a big part in this game, and I think that's going to be a good advantage for Barcelona as well. Because there's new guys, you have new energy, and that's going to allow them. Plus, with the crowd, because we got to remember too, there was no crowd then either.
Yeah.
Right. So with the crowd at Camp Nou, I think it's going to be a big deal. I think it's going to end up a tie. I'd say 2-2 or maybe 1-1.
Yeah, 2-2 is mine as well. Because I don't see Bayern or Barca not scoring, but I don't see it being a blowout. I think the teams are in vastly different form compared to the form they were in back then. And I could definitely see this being a tie. And again, for Barca starting off the Champions League against Bayern Munich with a tie, yes, it's at home, but it's still Bayern Munich. That's a really good – I'd say that's a pretty good result, considering that Barca are still coping with the loss of Messi and Antoine Griezmann. Obviously not as big as each other, but those are still two losses that can hurt a team. But I think so far, Koeman has done a good job of making sure that the team sticks together and making sure that the newcomers are being used properly. And so that's part of the reason why, alongside Memphis being an absolute revelation, that's one of the reasons why I feel like 2-2 would be a fair result tonight. Joav?
Yeah, and I'm looking forward.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just before Joav, go ahead. I'm really, what I'm really looking forward to, and it's going to sound really weird. I really want to see how the crowd reacts now that Messi's not there. How much of an effect is that going to have on the team as well? I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, because this is the first Champions League game for a long time without Lionel Messi.
Yeah, 16 years, 17 years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually gonna be very interesting, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that later as well. But yeah, that's a question as well. Is if it is going to be noticeable, and I think now more than ever, Barca are really going to feel the support of their fans, because a lot of fans used to be fans just because Messi was there, and now those have sort of been filtered out. So the support that we'll see, I think, will be different. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we'll find out. But definitely an interesting point. But now, Joav, on to you. What do you think we'll see on the scoreline after the 90?
Yeah, very quickly, after what Steve said of how Camp Nou will react, I was actually thinking, are they going to still do like the clap thing when it's a free kick near goal and all that?
Right.
Because it was always like Messi's moment, like clap, and then just goal by Messi, like an amazing free kick. So yeah,
Right.
I mean the little things that are actually can have an effect on the team, but it's going to be, as I said before, exciting times for Barcelona. As you said, Omar, a lot of the fans have filtered out. I think they've moved more to Paris, but yeah, I think it will be an amazing time for Barcelona, and we'll see. It's a rebuild, but I was thinking before Steve actually answered, I'm going to go as well with a 2-2. Bayern will score. I don't think Barcelona is still at that level defensively to really nullify Lewandowski like to a 0 goal. but I think Barcelona will also fight back. So I think it will be a 2-2. I don't think it will be a draw. I do think it will be a draw.
Nice. Interesting. All right. Well, I guess we're ready for when the game starts at 9 p.m. Remember, here at Blogonogram, we will cover the game on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and on our website in written format. So if you're going to miss the game or if you can't watch the game in its entirety, feel free to check up on those platforms to make sure that you're up to date with what's going on. Steve, before we hop off, tell the people where they can find you.
Oh man, you can find me everywhere, literally. but the main platforms you can find me on is on Buzzsprout. You can find me on Spotify, Apple Podcast. We also have the website for the podcast at statmanpodcast.com. So basically, you find all the episodes up to episode 99. And I just use these 10 seconds just to give a little promotion. I have episode 100 coming up soon. It's a big accomplishment, doing this for 3 years. So, episode 100, I have a special guest coming on as well. And from there, it's going to be exciting. So I look forward to seeing you guys there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Statmanpodcast.com.
Pleasure is all ours. Thank you so much for joining us, Steve. It's really been a pleasure.
My pleasure.
So, Joav, do you have any final words before we hop off?
Let's hope for the best as always, and let's hope that this time next week we're also celebrating and analyzing a great match from Barcelona.
Hopefully. And on that note, thank you all so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you missed this episode or any other episode that we've ever put out, these will be on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Audible, wherever you listen to podcasts, we will be there. These have been live streamed on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, so you can rewatch them there if you want in video format. And all the links that we've mentioned, so that's my socials, Joav's, and Steve's socials, links to his podcast, they'll all be in the description below. If you enjoyed this, drop us a follow, a like, or a share, or a rating if you're on Apple Podcasts. Let us know what you think. And on that note, I hope you're all staying sane, safe, and well. We will see you next time, and roll the outro.
My name is Phil Shane, and you've been listening to The Driven Shot, hosted by Omar Hawash and the Blaugranagram news outlet. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you have a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.